everybody. Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Today's episode is going to cover a lot of ground, so I hope you can stick around. On this episode, you are going to hear from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. You're going to hear from Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. You're going to hear from our Defense Minister, David McGuinty, the Premier of British Columbia, David Eby. You're going to hear from President Donald Trump, I think she's the Industry Minister now. I don't even know what she does. Former Foreign Affairs Minister, Melanie Joly, and a lot more on this episode of Scott Fox After 9. But before I get into it, a couple of quick housekeeping items. Tomorrow, Friday, listener DMs. I've already got a lot of DMs in, and they cover a lot of different topics. Everything from immigration to jobs to the performance of Ontario Premier Doug Ford. All of that tomorrow. But one of the messages I want you to listen for tomorrow has to do with a topic that a number of people have messaged me about. You may have heard on the news that the mayor of Vaughan, Ontario, Stephen Del Duca, the guy who was opposed to the speed enforcement cameras in his city, is now advocating for a different kind of surveillance of his citizens. And these are cameras that read license plates, and it flags the police. If the police are out looking for a particular car, this license plate reader on the camera can let police know, hey, we spotted it at Yonge Street and Main Street a few minutes ago. There's a lot of people who heard that and thought, oh, here we go again. More government overreach in this insane nanny state that we live in. I got some great information yesterday from someone who deals directly with the vendor, the company that makes and sells those cameras. I learned a lot about them. I learned a lot, and while I don't want more cameras watching people, I will say that I do feel a little bit better about this concept after learning what I learned. I'm going to share that with you tomorrow on listener DMs right here on Scott Fox After 9. And if you want to slide into my DMs and get something on the pod, maybe it's a comment, maybe you have a question, you want to make a statement, you want to call me out for something or correct me on something, whatever it is, the podcast is yours on Fridays, listener DMs. How do you send me one? No problem. Follow me on Instagram or X or whatever. Those are my two preferences, but Facebook works. I rarely check TikTok, but you never know. I might get a message there too at Scott Fox on air. SCOTTFOX on air. Send me a DM, and tomorrow I will have all of those right here in Scott Fox After 9. To begin, a couple of things that I want to follow up on from yesterday. The episode yesterday talked a lot about housing. The federal housing minister announced the first phase of a whole bunch of new homes that they're going to put in Toronto at the Downsview Air Force Base. And he's spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to upgrade infrastructure in Toronto that clearly the city of Toronto has neglected for a very long time if it's going to cost $280 million just to upgrade the sewer system so that they can put homes right beside Rogers Stadium. Well, there's an update. Yesterday, I was critical of the federal government because there was no information in that announcement. There's some things that people want to know about their housing plan. One of my criticisms was, where is the catalog? They said there would be a catalog of all kinds of different homes that people could go through and say, I want home number 4. And then somebody else might say, I want design number 6. You pick your house and the builders build it for you in a factory somewhere. They drop it on the plot of land and boom, there is your new home. Well, lo and behold, the government actually was very responsive and very quick. They've now published the housing catalog. I'm only just barely skimming it here. There's like 60 different designs, but they're different designs for different regions. And they say different regions have different local needs. So the house that you buy in Alberta might be different from the house you buy in BC. Basically, all of Atlantic Canada is going to be on one design. It's going to look very vanilla out there. Ontario has a whole other set of designs. So does Quebec. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are going to share. And then the Yukon, the Northwest Territories, they are going to have their own set of housing from this catalog. Some of the houses, they actually look all right. Not particularly big, about 1,000 square feet in some cases, some of them even smaller. And while I do commend the government for putting out this catalog so that if somebody says, I want one of these deeply affordable homes and I want it at Downsview and I want design 6, Well, the plans are right there, and the companies that are going to be manufacturing these homes can just refer to the catalog, and they've got the design specs. They build it, they drop it on the plot, boom, it's yours. That's good that we know what the house is going to look like, but there's still some critical information missing, and I can't figure out why the government is being so evasive about this. Nowhere does it say how much these homes are going to cost. Nowhere. I can't find a price on any of them. And when we hear we're going to get a whole bunch of cheap homes, I think the first question is, how cheap? How much are these things going to cost? So we have no information on that whatsoever, and it's still not clear who owns the home. If we're hiring private companies to build these homes, but the person who's going to be moving into it selects the design, and the government is subsidizing it in some way, and they're meant to be deeply affordable, does that include property taxes? Hard to say. And who owns the home? Does the government own it? Does the builder own it? Or does the person who said, build me that home and I will live in it? If they live in it, can they turn around and sell it? Can they rent it? There's still so much information that is missing. I have a real hard time believing that this government is serious and that we're actually going to go ahead and do this, because the promise is, what was it? They said 1 million new homes, and we have zero information. They've got the catalog. That's good, but we still don't know how much and who's going to own it. And I think those are the top two questions that are on people's minds. So compliment where it is due. You got the catalog out. Criticism where it is due. Still lacking a lot of information, and the federal government needs to work on that. Before I get into more content from today, I want to follow up on a story that came out yesterday. There was a lot of people talking about Ontario Premier Doug Ford, who claims he chased down a shoplifter at a Home Depot, threatened to beat the hell out of him all across the parking lot, and managed to get back a saw blade that was stolen from that Home Depot store. Well, in Ontario, the leader of the opposition is Marit Stiles. She leads the NDP party in Ontario, and she is still seemingly implying BS on what the premier has to say.
I just think the premier likes to tell tall tales, but I'll tell you this, though. Again, what is he doing talking about chasing down a shoplifter in a parking lot? 800,000 Ontarians want him to be chasing jobs here in the province of Ontario. 800,000 unemployed people. Thousands of folks in Brampton, in Oshawa, in Windsor, forestry workers all across northern Ontario who are staring down unemployment. And this premier, thinks this is the time to start telling these tales. Honestly, we don't need Captain Canada. We don't need Batman. We need a premier who's actually fighting for jobs in this province.
Batman. Interesting analogy. Captain Canada. I hear that one a lot. Listen, I will say here, in fairness to the premier, Home Depot has corroborated the story that the premier told. Sounds like it wasn't a tall tale per se, but I certainly do understand the sentiment that there's a lot of people who would really like to see Ontario Premier Doug Ford focus on doing his job, not going after shoplifters, not buying advertising in America as opposed to supporting Canadian media. There's a whole bunch of different criticisms of the premier. This story about the Home Depot thing, I don't know what to make of it. If he actually did it and he stopped a store from getting robbed, I guess that's good. But the opposition is going with that talking point. Part of the criticism there from the NDP had to do with the announcement that Stellantis is not opening that Jeep Compass manufacturing facility in Brampton. They're going to move that production to Illinois. There's a couple of updates there. Apparently, as an olive branch, they've said, yeah, we are leaving and we know that that's bad for Brampton, but we are going to open a third shift at one of our factories in Windsor. And they may try and get some of the folks who work at the factory in Brampton to relocate to Windsor. I don't know how many people are going to move 3.5 hours away to keep the job that they've currently got and probably don't love, but I guess that's a possibility. One of the people who was talking about this move by Stellantis down to Illinois is the mayor of Brampton, Ontario. He's also the former leader of the Ontario PC Party. His name is Patrick Brown, and yesterday he sat down with CTV News. He talked about this Stellantis situation. Listen to this.
be abandoned is devastating, to say the least. And I'm also concerned about the associated auto jobs and the auto parts section that we also have in our community. This is going to sting. Trump has made it very clear he's going after Canadian jobs, going after the Canadian auto sector. And this is an example of that. And we can't take it lying down. We need to push back. We have a U.S. administration that is trying to take our jobs and take our prosperity.
Okay, I mean, that's his perspective. I guess he would say something like that as the mayor of the city that's losing all of these jobs. I really don't know that that's an accurate assessment of what's going on here. Trump believes that the auto industry is rightfully America's, and he wants America's auto manufacturing done in America. It doesn't seem like this is a direct assault on Canada just to piss us off. He's simply, in his mind, righting a wrong and bringing that manufacturing that he says should have never left America in the first place. And that's part of the reason that Detroit is as gross as it is because it left and went to Canada. He wants it back. So different spins from different politicians about this. Let's bring in another politician, though. Melanie Joly is the former Foreign Affairs Minister. She received quite the demotion when Mark Carney took over as Prime Minister, but she did manage to stay in cabinet. And she's going all over the country talking to anybody who will listen about the Liberal plan. She's also not happy about Stellantis leaving, and she even threatened to sue them.
Well, let me be clear on Stellantis. I'm extremely disappointed about this decision, and not only am I disappointed, it's completely unacceptable. So we will fight for these jobs. We will fight for the jobs at Brampton. We'll fight for the jobs that were committed by Stellantis, and we'll fight for our auto sector.
What does that mean, we're going to fight for the jobs? Are you going to really fight for them? Are you going to roll up your sleeves, sit down across the table from the folks at Stellantis and say, what is it that's making you go to America? Is it political pressure, or is it the cost of doing business, the economic climate? Because if it's pressure, there's not much we can do. But if it's the economic climate, we can certainly change that. The Liberals, if they wanted to, could certainly make it more appealing for them to do business in Canada. And I do not mean giving them any more handouts. No more corporate welfare, especially for the auto industry, unless we get assurances that these companies are not going to take taxpayer money and then flee the country like it appears Stellantis is doing here. If we want companies to stay, we need to make it an attractive place to do business. Oh, holy cow. It's that easy. If Stellantis can make more money making their cars in Canada and selling them to the American audience with the tariffs, then they're going to stay. That's all there is to it. This is business, and we are not competitive in a business landscape. Here's the rest of what Melanie Joly had to say.
I've been in contact with Lana Payne, the head of Unifor, yesterday and today. I've been in contact with Flavia Volpe, who's an important voice in the sector. We've been working hand in glove also with the Ford government, and we're one strong Team Canada together. And the company has commitments under different types of agreements with the government, including the fact that we provided support for the retooling of the very Brampton facility that right now is sitting idle. So we will make sure that we push the company and we hold them to account.
How are you going to hold them to account? Melanie Joly did go on eventually to suggest that maybe we might even sue Stellantis. Well, if we're suing companies because they want to leave Canada, there's a long list of companies that we've got to start suing. And I might suggest that the first one we should look into is Brookfield. Remember right before Mark Carney all of a sudden decided he was interested in politics and wanted to be the prime minister, and he moved Brookfield from Canada to New York? How come that never drew any attention? How come when politicians are freaking out about Stellantis here, and I don't like Stellantis leaving either, that's going to be devastating for a lot of folks. I know that. It's sad. It was preventable, but I'm looking at this as a policy failure, not necessarily a Donald Trump tariff thing. We don't have a competitive business landscape in this country. Everyone knows it's very expensive to do business in Canada. And we did give Stellantis a bunch of money to retool that facility, which they're now going to take those jobs in that business and move it to Illinois. We understand that. Why would we do that if we had no assurances that they were going to stay? Sounds like Melanie Joly there is just admitting that once again, corporate welfare, handouts to companies don't really mean anything. There's no strings attached. If there were strings attached, Stellantis wouldn't be going anywhere. And if we're going to sue them over that, what kind of a message does that send to other companies? Probably tells them, hurry up and get out of here. Stellantis is going, and now the door is open for other auto manufacturers to also hit the road. It concerns me. I'm really, really worried about that. I don't want to see any more business flee Canada, but frankly, you can kind of see that snowball slowly turning into an avalanche. And it seems like we're going to be dealing with a lot more companies leaving Canada until we deal with the root problem. It's too expensive here. Even economists are now suggesting that it might be worth it to go even further into debt with the federal budget on November 4th and lower taxes. Bring in less revenue so that people aren't getting squeezed as hard as they are. Economists are suggesting take on more debt so that Canadians can have a little bit of relief. And that doesn't mean government handouts. That doesn't mean the government sending you checks. It means cutting taxes so they don't take as much money from us in the first place. I need to see Canada get a lot more aggressive on this. And I don't mean by threatening companies like Doug Ford did to Diageo and Crown Royal, like Melanie Joly is doing here to Stellantis, but what nobody would do to Brookfield. It's incredibly hypocritical. Let's get rid of that approach. Let's worry about making things more affordable in Canada, including bringing down the cost of doing business, including bringing down the cost of living in this country, because right now it is out of control. And a lot of people don't seem to care. They get so caught up in this elbows up nonsense, hate the big orange guy south of the border. Nobody's looking at what we're actually doing. You know, one of the big talking points that comes from Doug Ford, Melanie Joly, Mark Carney, all these people, we've got to control what we can only worry about what we can control. That's it. That's what they say. We have to focus on what we can control. We can control the cost of doing business in Canada. If it's cheaper to do business in Canada, businesses will do business in Canada. This is a very, very simple thing. I've got a couple of theories, by the way, about why this is playing out the way it's playing out. I'll credit Mario for the North on all the major platforms. Mario's great. I just saw him 2 weeks ago. We had a great conversation about what he's doing and about what I'm doing. Really, really like him. I got a lot of time for Mario. He has a scoop here. He shared an email or a document of some sort that seems to imply Elections Canada is scouting out locations that they can do polling for a November election, possibly a December election. That's interesting. Back in, it was either June or July, I suggested we could be having another election this fall. A lot of people said, Scott, you're crazy. There's no way we're having an election this fall. Here we are. We're talking about potentially having an election this fall. And that's very possible because we have a minority government in Ottawa that could fall at any time. If they lose a confidence vote, we're going to have an election. Well, the budget is a confidence vote. And if the opposition parties don't support the budget, we will be having a fall election. That, nearest I can tell, would not happen until at least the middle of December. The middle of December. Here's the theory that I was going to float out there based on what Mario put out there yesterday. I don't think it was an accident that Elections Canada just started to look for potential polling locations. I don't think it was. Maybe they're just looking down the line saying, well, it's possible we could, so maybe we should just see the lay of the land and see how feasible it is to have an election in December. Maybe that's it. Or maybe Mark Carney wants an election. Maybe Mark Carney is actually itching to go to the polls on this budget. Maybe he'll intentionally make that budget so unpalatable for the opposition parties that they have to bring him down and give him what he wants, an election. But why would Mark Carney want an election now? Well, if you look down the line, can't for much longer deny that we're in a recession. We know that Canadians are very, very angry and getting more angry by the day about the cost of doing business, about the tariff situation, about businesses fleeing Canada. It's entirely possible that right now, while the polls say Mark Carney could win, he wants that election now to get himself a majority government. While he thinks Pierre Poilievre is not as popular as he was in the spring, this is a good time for Carney to pull the trigger, get an election going, and he's going to take his shot at winning a majority government. Trudeau used to work out of the exact same playbook because it's the same people advising Carney that were advising Trudeau. Don't be at all surprised if the Liberals try and force an election this fall. And again, that would be likely sometime in December, fairly close to Christmas as I look at the calendar. Don't be surprised if we have an election, and don't be surprised if Carney wants it. Here's the other thing I've heard. This is a theory that is not mine. I'm sharing it from someone else who believes this to be true. And the person who told me this is also a conservative. They think the reason that Doug Ford is spending a ton of money buying ads on American television networks, and the reason that Doug Ford is all of a sudden again ramping up his anti-Donald Trump rhetoric is because Ford doesn't want to deal with Donald Trump. Ford is actually sabotaging any possibility that we might get a deal because as he looks down the line, we know the recession is going to be declared soon. We know the books are bad. We know immigration's out of control and crime is out of control. We've got a lot of different crises happening right now. Doug Ford wants to be able to blame Donald Trump for everything and not have to stand on his record. And right now, if I'm being honest, Ford's record is great when it comes to getting rid of speed enforcement cameras. He hasn't done it yet, but he says he's going to, and I believe him, and I thank him for getting rid of those cameras. But what is Ford's record like on healthcare? What's his record like on education? How big is the debt and the Ontario deficit going to be when we get another budget? Those are all things that Doug would love to be able to get everybody mad at Donald Trump again, so that he doesn't have to confront those issues. I have nothing to base that on. It's a theory that I was told, and in my head, it kind of makes sense. That's how he got reelected with another majority government back in the spring, by getting everybody so pissed off at Donald Trump that they forgot they were mad at him. It's an interesting strategy, and I'm here for it. I love it, and I can't wait to see how the next few months play out. Speaking of Doug Ford, yesterday he was in Northern Ontario to do an announcement. Let's hear a little bit of the Premier.
Friends, our government has a plan. Our number one job as a government, my number one job is make sure we protect the people of Ontario. I need to protect the communities against that tyrant south of the border, which drives me absolutely nuts.
Maybe I won't play this. Doug Ford ranting and raving like a lunatic about Donald Trump is one of the least appealing things. If he's going to do this, I'm going to lean into the other side. Doug, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to go out? I mean, that theory that I just told you, boom, first clip I played, kind of lends a little bit of credibility to that theory. We don't want people asking questions about healthcare. We don't want them asking about funding for autism supports. We don't want them asking about $10 a day childcare or education or any of the other big provincial issues. So just get everybody all mad at Donald Trump again. We get it. A lot of people don't like Donald Trump, but they aren't blaming him for all of our problems. We had problems before Donald Trump, and frankly, we've got a ton of problems that have nothing to do with Donald Trump. And we would like you, my friend, to focus on those. So as I said many times during the summer, maybe he needs a reminder. Get Donald Trump's name out of your mouth. Stellantis is gone because you didn't protect Ontario. Stellantis is gone because Mark Carney is not the negotiator he said he was. Blaming Donald Trump for all our problems is stupid.
And we'll always be there to protect the families and businesses who call our province home. To build an Ontario that is more competitive, we have to be more resilient and more self-reliant and not just rely on the U.S. And by the way, I love the people of the U.S. I just don't like one guy down there.
Here he goes again.
We're cutting the red tape, keeping taxes and fees low, and investing in our workers. Our government is also building the infrastructure that we need to drive Ontario's growth with the largest plan to build in Canadian history. Now, Greg, you've been pushing Highway 17. We're finally getting it done. That connection between Kenora up to Manitoba, but Highway 11, and we need that. When you drive down those roads in the winter, even in the summer, it can be treacherous. In the north, we're making road investments in roads and highways and transit, hospitals, and long-term care homes through our 200, I'm going to change that because it says 200 billion, it's actually $220 billion to plan to continue to build, which again is the largest in Canadian history. So we can connect communities, create opportunities, and protect northern families and businesses by investing in infrastructure we need. And what the infrastructure doesn't just build strong, resilient communities, it creates jobs. Good paying jobs. And this includes widening Highway 17, as I just mentioned, from the Manitoba border to Kenora. And we have a good relationship with a premier over there, Wab Canoe. He's a great guy. With 6 kilometers finished already, so we're moving along fairly quickly with the support of our Across the district, we're investing in workers through our Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation. Since 2018, NOHFC has approved more than $87 million. That's a big number, $87 million.
Maybe you should have read it before you came out to give this speech. You shouldn't be surprised by your own numbers. By the way, this is the guy who just yesterday claimed he was a staunch fiscal conservative. Staunch fiscal conservative. Let's talk about all the money you're spending, staunch fiscal conservative.
And we're providing more than $11 million through our municipal housing infrastructure program to enable 1,400 homes in the community. Across Ontario, we're investing nearly $60 billion to build and upgrade more than 50 hospitals across the province. I always say, no matter where you live in the province, you're either getting an addition or you're getting a new hospital. And thank God we're here and we're going to get a new hospital. Earlier this year, we announced an investment of $28 million to build a new Aboriginal Health Access Center in downtown Kenora to connect people with Indigenous design and delivered programs. And we're connecting hundreds of thousands of people to a family doctor or primary care team, bringing us one stop closer to connecting every single person in Ontario to convenient primary care by 2029. We're putting a few $billion in to make sure every single person is connected to a primary care doc. And I'm thrilled to announce today
Billions and billions and billions of dollars. And oh my God, is anybody's life any better? Anybody's? That's staunch fiscal conservative Doug Ford talking right there about how much of our money he's blowing. And frankly, I don't trust that we got the best deal. I don't trust that we got good value for money. And I'm not 100% that some of these projects were even necessary. Well, maybe they were politically. Maybe they were. Because the politics seems to do crazy things to good people. Boy, do I want to hear any more of Doug? I don't even know if he goes on again talking about Trump. If he does, I'm going to cut him off. Let's get to some of the Q&A with the Premier yesterday in Northern Ontario.
And the tariffs for lumber went up yesterday or today. I'm not sure. But have you... got any?
I'll talk to him on Thursday. But that guy, President Trump, he's a real piece of work. You know something? What my message to the Prime Minister when I meet him?
Okay, before I play the rest of this, and I have a feeling it's just going to be another Trump derangement syndrome rant from Doug Ford. I really don't understand this other than every clip I hear. That strategy that I told you a few minutes ago makes more and more sense. Doug doesn't want to talk about the issues. Doug just wants everybody mad at Mark Carney. It worked for him in the spring. He convinced people to give him a majority government again, and that's the strategy. Just get everybody all hopping mad at Donald Trump, and not talk about how bad our healthcare system is, our education system is, how many people are not getting the supports and funding they need for their autism and ABA and therapies. The list goes on. We got a lot of problems here, and all he wants to do is take pot shots at Donald Trump because Donald Trump is doing exactly what Doug Ford himself is doing, by the way. Doug Ford is governing with an iron fist, pouring out bottles of Crown Royal and threatening to rip their products off the shelf unless they stay an Ontario company. It's the exact same thing that Donald Trump is doing. Trump didn't pour out any booze. Trump didn't threaten anybody with pulling their products off the shelves. He just said, if you don't want to set up here, you're going to pay a tariff. That's all there is to it. It's the exact same tactic, just a slightly different strategy. He lost me. I was really warming up to him again, and now I see that strategy again. It makes much more sense to me now. it's just going to be blame Donald Trump for the fact that our healthcare system is crumbling. Blame Donald Trump for the fact that our schools are a holy disaster right now.
On Thursday is if you can't get a deal, let's start hitting him back. Let's start hitting the U.S. back hard, because all Trump does is continue. We're nice, play nice in the sandbox, and today's yesterday's 10% on softwood lumber. After it was 35%, he increased it 10%. And then he all of a sudden, one day out of the blue, someone must have told him cabinet makers. And we should ship a lot of cabinets down there. And all of a sudden now there's a tariff there. I am sick and tired of sitting and rolling over. We need to fight back. Folks, we are an economic powerhouse.
Let me offer a counter narrative here. Donald Trump is doing exactly what Americans elected him to do. And you know why it pisses Doug off so much? Because Trump is taking back what should have never left America in the first place. They're offering a better business atmosphere. It's better. They make more money. The cost of labor is cheaper. That's why. What's Doug Ford doing about any of that? Nothing. Nothing. Not a goddamn thing. Is he cutting business taxes? Is he going to cut property taxes for large facilities and plants? Is he going to do anything, or just piss and moan about Donald Trump and hope that you forget that it takes 12 hours to see a doctor and it'll take you probably months or years to get the diagnosis and scans that you need if you're facing cancer or something like that? What's happening here in Ontario was all preventable. We are now on the third mandate for this government, and there's no solutions coming about any of the problems. It's just bitching about Donald Trump. That's all it is. Forget over here. Look at over here. Now he wants to push retaliation, does he? Oh, fight back. Make it even worse. Piss Trump off even more. Keep making him angry, because if he's angry, he's far less likely to do a deal. And if we have a deal, not good for us, because then we've got to start being accountable for what we've done as a government. It's all it is. It's all it is. I've talked myself into the strategy. That's got to be what it is.
We buy $356 billion of goods, Canada does, off the U.S. We're the number one customer to the U.S. No one in the world buys more goods than what we do. We need to start hitting back, and hitting back hard. That's the only thing this person understands. Here. Sorry, I just get pumped up talking about this guy. He drives me absolutely crazy.
We know. You should probably talk to somebody about that. Like, actually get actual help, because we need adults running things. We need people to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time and work on domestic issues while also focusing on the other issues. There's Trump not Trump. He acts like Trump, though. I mean, the parallels are unbelievable. Doug Ford is highly critical of Donald Trump for doing exactly what Doug Ford is trying to do. Rule with an iron fist. You will genuflect before me. You will stay in my province, and you will make me money. And if you dare leave, I'll screw you. It's exactly what Donald Trump is doing to the companies that are not in America now that he wants back in America. Hey, what is this counter stuff going to do except raise prices for Canada? Do you really think that Trump is going to say, oh, no, boy, oh boy, now there's tariffs on cabinets going from America into Ontario. We better make a deal with Canada. It doesn't seem that way. I highly doubt it. America's ready to go it alone if they have to. They'd rather work with Canada, but they're ready to go it alone. The Prime Minister has a very good relationship with Trump, nearest I can tell. Let the Prime Minister deal with it. Somebody get the goddamn microphone out of Doug Ford's mouth. Take it away from him, because he's just trying to flame this up even more. He is trying to stoke the flames to try and create a scenario where there is no deal with Donald Trump, so that he can continue to blame Trump for everything and not have to be accountable for domestic issues. I can't see it any other way now. Now that I've heard this news conference, which I was told, he mentions Trump a few times in this one. I did not listen to this in advance. I was told that. Now that I'm actually hearing it, it all makes sense. That's got to be the strategy. Don't worry about anything at home, because everybody's going to be mad at Donald Trump. And if Trump dares to make a deal with Canada, that's terrible, because then Doug's going to have to worry about his own job. He's going to have to worry about health care and schools, all the other provincial issues.
And we aren't going to roll over. I'm not going to let him roll over Ontario, I'll tell you that.
This will be the last reporter.
Yeah.
What are you clapping for?
Thank you.
Matt Kennedy here for CTV News.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Premier. I'm wondering, are you still committed to the billions, committed to the Stellantis EV deal in Windsor, given what the company has done in Brampton?
I'm not going to give them a penny because it was tied in to making sure Windsor and keep Brampton going. And we haven't given them a penny for Brampton yet. We gave them about $55 million out of the couple billion that the feds and I and the companies agreed. You know, it's disappointing. They said that.
Hold on. Not going to give him a penny, but we gave him $55 million? Is that right? Did that staunch fiscal conservative give Stellantis $55 million of our money? And now they're leaving and going to Illinois. And nobody seems to be able to talk them out of it. Nobody's offering to cut their taxes or subsidize their wages or anything. Nothing. We're just going to piss and moan about it. And we gave them $55 million of our tax dollars on the way out the door? Really? I'd like to know a little more about that.
I had a conversation with the president of Stellantis yesterday. He said, well, we're going to postpone it for a year. We're going to find a new model. You know, I don't understand. They're investing $13 billion in the U.S. We're, you know, an auto manufacturing powerhouse here.
Not really.
They're going to transfer 1,500. The only good news, there's no good news, but the only good news is they're adding a third shift in Windsor. And they're going to try to transfer 1,500 people from Brampton down to Windsor. But we're competitive. We can produce the best vehicles anywhere in the entire world, right here in Ontario. So I'm going to keep pushing like they've never seen before.
Okay. How's the Crown Royal thing coming along? How's insert any company that's thinking about leaving? Where was the criticism for Brookfield when they left? Where was that? He's so choosy and picky about the companies he wants to criticize and the ones that he's just going to sort of sweep under the rug. Imagine casually just breezing over that you gave him $55 million on the way out the door. Unbelievable. I don't even want to hear any more of that. Let's go out east, Fredericton. I played earlier a little bit from Melanie Joly. She was doing it's kind of a roundtable or a Q&A with like liberals on the East Coast yesterday. It was weird. But she did get asked an interesting question. Here is Melanie Joly.
What does success look like for the industrial strategy at the end of the day? And how can communities like Fredericton and provinces like New Brunswick contribute to its success?
Well, I think, we need to protect jobs. So the jobs being protected and being able to keep companies afloat while they're going through this crisis. And so the softwood lumber industry is something that I'm very much following, particularly here in New Brunswick. And, there are certain aspects of these industries that are extremely important because if we lose them, it's actually sometimes our national security that is at risk. Because if one day Canada is not in time of peace, we need to have steel plants. We need to have aluminum plants. We need to have lumber also. So that's one thing. Second thing, we need to be able also to create jobs. And I think we can, but we have to go fast. And that's why, it's not even 6 months and we're coming up with the defense and industrial strategy because we need to ramp up our investments. And meanwhile, if we don't, we will be buying from the Americans or buying from Europeans. Well, we could be creating jobs here at home. That would be extremely naive. And folks, I'm a progressive progressive politician. And so we're investing in defense to keep peace at home. It's not defense for defense. It's because we need to show deterrence. And we need to be able to not take peace for granted. And so that's for, creating jobs. And
she's not even making sense. She reminds me so much of Trudeau, just spinning around so much BS in like a cement mixer. She is just not making any sense and going around in circles and jobs and then defense. And we can't take our peace for granted. Who's attacking us? Who? Nobody is. Nobody's going to attack us. And if they are, isn't that why we're spending so much money with the Americans to join the Golden Dome? Isn't that why we need to deal with the Americans so that they'll protect us? Wasn't that the point of all this? I don't understand. Jobs. She mentioned jobs 3 times in that clip. 3 times. We just lost thousands of them with Stellantis, and God knows how many more are going to get lost. What the hell is she doing? What is any of them doing? What's Ford doing? Besides threatening people and pouring out Crown Royal and stuff like that. What's Carney doing? Any of them doing anything? Or, back to my previous point, which I've now made a few times, do they all just want people mad at Donald Trump? I don't know if Carney's going to go down that road. He seems like he's got a good enough relationship with Trump that that's just not going to work. It seems like they're legitimately interested in trying to work out some sort of a deal. Now Ford's getting in the way of that. Craziness. Let's go out to the West Coast. British Columbia Premier David Eby yesterday speaking with the media after an announcement about more tariffs on softwood lumber.
Morning, Premier. Let's just begin with your latest communications with the Prime Minister about making sure that lumber is a priority in any comprehensive trade deal with the United States. And I guess a two-parter to it, just your confidence that this can be done and that the feds can step up with the support that this industry needs.
Thanks. I have some anxiety, and I think it's just born of repeated experience being in British Columbia. Because Ottawa is in Ontario, because it's beside Quebec, those provinces are often front of mind. And so my anxiety as a British Columbian, as a Western Premier, is that we have to be way more aggressive to make sure that we get our message heard. Today's announcement, this group of people who have gathered here, is what we have to do. And what we're saying is that the industry is at a tipping point. This industry that contributes so much to Canada's GDP, that provides direct employment to so many Canadians from coast to coast to coast, is facing an existential threat through tariffs that are profoundly unfair, are completely unjustified, and are hurting Americans as well.
Well, how about you don't tell the Americans what's fair for Americans? That's job one. David Eby there trying to claim that because they're so far away from Ottawa, people forget about British Columbia. Well, I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's just completely preposterous to think that the federal government doesn't really care about British Columbia because it's too far away from Ottawa. They don't think about it because they can't see it out their front door. Get out of here. Just a joke. Do we have any good politicians in this country? Any of them? Or any of them actually fighting for the middle class? Or are they all fighting to keep their jobs? You know, you've heard Eby and Ford and Joly in this episode all talk jobs, jobs, jobs. Seems like the only job they're worried about is their own, if I'm being honest. That's the way it seems. Hey, we've been dealing with softwood lumber issues for as long as I can remember. Maybe we should just not be a softwood lumber country anymore. Maybe we should just get out of the business. You know, it'll destroy our GDP, the tariffs. I don't know that it will. I really don't. You know what the nice thing about softwood lumber is it's not going anywhere. Softwood lumber becomes softwood lumber when we cut a tree down. Leave the tree up, forget about the lumber. Move on to something else. Retrain people, get them doing something else. It's too hard. We just can't be a softwood lumber country anymore. We haven't been able to figure it out. We're not very good at it. The U.S. beats us every single time over the head on this issue, and frankly, it's getting old. Today, the federal government is announcing a whole bunch of subsidies for softwood lumber companies. I'm not sure why, because we just yesterday heard the federal housing minister say that all of these new homes that they're building, 1 million new homes, are going to be made with Canadian materials. Great. Softwood lumber should be just fine then. There shouldn't be an issue or a need to subsidize them right now. It doesn't make any sense. They're wasting our money. The only job they're worried about is their own. That's what everybody needs to understand. All of these people are opportunistic. I think half of them are on the take, and none of them cares about you or me or the middle class. None of them. I got to go rapid fire. I've got to fit a few more things into this episode, and I want to because I think these are things that you need to hear. Pierre Poilievre. I played a little bit of him on the Northern Perspectives podcast the other day. It was an interesting interview. Full credit to the folks over there at Northern Perspective. I don't know them, but I certainly enjoy their content, and they're worth a follow on social media. He was talking about former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Trudeau was involved in a lot of scandals. Did those scandals meet the threshold, though, for criminal charges? Pierre thinks they did, and he's wondering why were charges never laid then?
Many of the scandals of the Trudeau era should have been involved jail time. I mean, Trudeau broke the criminal code when he took a free vacation from someone with whom he had government business. It's just like, it's right there in the criminal code. If the RCMP had been doing its job and not covering up for him, then he would have been criminally charged. And again, he probably violated the criminal code in the SNC-Lavalin scandal. These would normally have led to criminal charges, but of course the RCMP covered it all up, and the leadership of the RCMP is frankly just despicable when it comes to enforcing laws against the Liberal government. But yeah, I would fire them, and in cases like that, I would report them to the police.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard something like that from the leader of the opposition. The scandals that Trudeau was involved in meet the threshold for criminal charges. If there's criminal charges and a criminal conviction, that should mean jail time. Why was there never any charges laid against Trudeau? Why was there not more from the RCMP? I mean, I don't know that I would have gone that far, but Pierre is saying right then and there that the leadership at the RCMP covered for Trudeau so that he didn't get charged. If that's true, that is a massive, massive scandal, and it involves taxpayer money and conflicts of interest. That's one to follow. I'm very surprised Pierre went down that road. I don't know if electorally that's going to help him, or if that's just going to make the low information folks out there that only get their information from the mainstream media think, oh, conspiracy theory. I can't pay attention to that. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's actual history. Read about it. It's good. Google the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Google any of them. The vacation on the Aga Khan's Island. Any of them. It's pretty wild. I'd never really thought about it like that. Should there have been charges? I guess in hindsight, maybe. I'm not a lawyer or a cop or a Crown attorney, but nonetheless, that's what is coming from Pierre Poilievre on that particular clip. Again, thank you very much to Northern Perspective for allowing me to use that short clip. Yesterday, our defense minister, David McGuinty, announced we're sending another $500 million to Ukraine.
I'm looking forward to hearing what the United States has to say about further provision of equipment and sustainment of equipment in Ukraine. Canada was pleased to purchase one of the $500 million packages under the Pearl Initiative to provide the equipment that Ukraine obviously and desperately needs. So we'll see what the Americans have to say about that today.
The Pearl Initiative will make a difference for Ukraine. Can you explain?
Again?
How will this Pearl Initiative make a difference for Ukraine?
It's a coherent approach to equipment that's required and available immediately. A list which is devised by the Ukrainians in conjunction with the Americans. It's a list of material which is available now. It's an important moment. So we believe one of the first 3 or 4 countries to commit and to invest this way. We believe this will have an immediate impact. That equipment is already beginning to flow.
But the initiative is not picking up at the speed that the Americans had hoped. So how do you want to convince your European counterparts today to also invest more and purchase more through Pearl?
We'll talk about that. I'm sure the presentation by Ukrainian military and other officials will help all of us better understand what the real situation is on the ground.
I would love to know what the real situation on the ground in Ukraine is. Basically, for anyone who didn't follow that, we've basically set up like a wedding registry for Ukraine. And Ukraine has registered for tanks and missiles and fighter planes and all sorts of stuff. And all the different countries can go on the registry and purchase any of those things. And then the U.S. gets that defense contract, and then they'll be shipped over to Ukraine, but paid for by everybody except for the U.S. They're just the manufacturer. And Donald Trump finagled a great deal for America. Anything that's going to Ukraine needs to be bought from America. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What a great deal. I mean, I can't blame him for doing it. I can't. I think it's brilliant. But why are we sending another $500 million to Ukraine? Has anyone in this government ever asked themselves, how much money can we actually spend? What's the limit? Because it doesn't seem like they have any limit. They're building up the debt. We're spending money on other countries when we have clear needs here in Canada. There's things Canadians need. And we're sending all of our money overseas still, again. Craziness. Jobs is a very important topic, particularly jobs for young people. Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party, put out a good video just yesterday talking to a young person about the state of the job market for teenagers. This is an interesting one because I've heard it myself. Unless you are the parent of a teenager or a young adult yourself, you might not even know how bad it is out there. In fact, I've heard really condescending remarks from baby boomers in particular. Boomers who are saying things like, if you want a job, you can get a job. You're just lazy. There's lots of jobs out there. Don't say there's not. You just don't want to work. I'm here to tell you, no, there's not. I've seen it firsthand countless times. There are not the traditional jobs that young people used to get available. They're not. They've been taken up by adults who are working 2 jobs to make ends meet, by senior citizens who have come out of retirement or re-entered the workforce because their cost of living is way too high, and because of foreigners, foreign workers. It's wrong. Pierre Poilievre spoke to a teenager yesterday. Listen to this.
Youth employment numbers in Canada today are the worst in 30 years. This is the story that we're hearing again and again. You've been applying for jobs at restaurants and where else?
Dozens of jobs, like at retail, fast food, dining restaurants, stuff like that, never getting a call back.
And why do you think it is that they're not hiring?
I don't know. It's just there's more candidates than job openings.
Yeah, and that really is unacceptable in a country with so much potential. There should be more jobs than people. There should be higher wages. Our young people should be able to save up for university, college, their apprenticeship, or God forbid, an eventual down payment on a house. But none of that is possible in the Carney economy. So let's just diagnose the problem here. You've got heavy red tape and high taxes that are killing jobs for small businesses. And then what jobs are available are often being given to temporary foreign workers and other people who've come to the country as part of mass immigration. Now, we want everyone to have a chance, and of course, we're a welcoming country, but we've brought in people in larger numbers than we have jobs for them. And in particularly, the temporary foreign worker program allows multinational corporations to give Ryan's job to low-wage labor from poor countries, and that profits those corporations, but it does so at the expense of our youth who need those jobs, not just for the money, but also for their resume and their experience. So do you agree that we should get rid of the temporary foreign worker program and then unlock the free enterprise system so we can create jobs for the next generation of teenagers?
Absolutely. We can't allow that corporate greed to collaborate with the government that way.
Yeah, it's government greed combined with crony corporatism. This is not the free market at work. This is big government helping big business screw over the working class youth of our nation. And my future government is going to reverse it. We're going to have free enterprise with low taxes, zero capital gains tax when you reinvest in Canada, opening a mine, a pipeline, a restaurant, a retailer, zero capital gains tax on that. But there's a catch. Our businesses are going to have to hire Canadians and Canadians first. No more temporary foreign workers. Our kids come first for our country. That's what we need for Ryan, for you, for us all. Way to go, buddy.
Thank you, sir.
Good message. Nice to see somebody trying to do something to address the problem. Even acknowledging the problem would be a step forward, but I don't think anybody at Queen's Park or any of the provincial legislatures really, or in Ottawa, is willing to acknowledge we have a major problem. Nobody wants to do that because they'd have to admit they screwed up and created the situation we're in.
Have poured billions of dollars into Stellantis, and we want to make sure that they get all that money back if the company is moving jobs out of this country. Why would the Liberals allow a company that's getting billions of tax dollars, supposedly to create jobs, take those jobs to the U.S.? It sounds like another disastrous Liberal boondoggle
And Mark Carney, it's time for you to keep your promise to those workers. You said you'd negotiate a win.
Friends, I'm going to wrap it up there. There was a couple more clips I was going to play for you from Donald Trump, but at the end of the day, I don't think too many Canadians care, and it doesn't really matter at the end of the day anyway. He does a lot of news conferences. That'll come up another time. Tomorrow, listener DMs. I really look forward to hearing from you. If there's something you want to say or get on the pod, slide into my DMs at Scott Fox on air. Have a wonderful Thursday. Go Jays, go. And I'll catch you right back here tomorrow. And I leave you, as always, with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now.